Hi, I'm Brandon Jackson for Web Bike World. In this video, we're going to take a look at the SP Air gloves from Alpinestars. With summer approaching, I wanted to get a new pair of gloves for use in hot weather. In this case, I wanted to make sure that the gloves had a gauntlet and were mostly made of leather. Now, that's sometimes harder than you might think to find in a summer glove, but Alpinestars SP Air gloves seem to tick all the boxes on paper. Let's see how they do in the overall. To start with, they're about 40% leather. Now, Alpinestars doesn't specifically call out whether they're cowhide or goat skin. We're going to go with the idea that it is definitely leather, and a lot of it is perforated. They also use a lot of this synthetic suede material here. There's also mesh paneling on the back here and under the gauntlet. The overall construction, I would say, is pretty good. There is a lot of stitching that's very neat, double stitching in places where it needs it. The only area where I ran into some concern is the areas along the finger boxes on the left side glove, where it looks like they could have trimmed this leather a little bit better. It's just a little untidy, and when you're paying over $100 for a pair of gloves, especially for a pair of gloves from someone like Alpinestars, I'd expected that to be a little bit neater. But overall, they look like they're going to hold up well, and they offer some good protection. Starting at the top, we've got, instead of carbon fiber, which I'm not a huge fan of because it's really, really rigid and can split or crack on an impact, this is flexible. It is thermoplastic polyurethane, and it looks like there's two pieces, but there is actually white plastic in between the two black sides here. Underneath this protector, there is a thick foam pad which runs just about all the way under this white area here. There is no stretch panel or place where it slides in and out, but because of the thick foam, it remains pretty comfortable. Also, this mesh in the back here is pretty flexible, and they're comfortable when you're wearing them. The first three fingers also get TPU plastic protectors on the first knuckle. The little finger doesn't get one, but gets a nice patch of leather here. Also, the little finger and ring finger are connected with this leather bridge that helps protect the finger from getting rolled under or hyperextending in the event of a crash. Finally, the ends of the first three fingers also get a bit of foam padding under some perforated leather. The gauntlet itself has a bit of padding here under the Alpinestars logo. The gauntlet here is pretty small, but it's not designed to go over bulky sleeves of a three-season jacket. It's really designed to go over the thinner sleeves that you would find on mesh jackets or other similar type of jackets for warm weather. The gauntlet is split, making it a little bit easier to get into. However, the path around the wrist strap here, even with the wrist strap fully done, is still pretty tight, requiring a good sized tug to get it through. Also, the little flap that covers the strap is great to protect it, but does make it a little awkward to take it on and off sometimes as it likes to get in the way. It's not that big a deal. But what is a big deal, and I'm going to show you a picture now, is a close-up of this Velcro patch right here on the wrist strap. This plastic piece of the Velcro that's sewn onto the strap stuck out 2 or 3 millimeters there and would catch on the little D-ring, making it difficult to pull it through the ring to give you that extra bit of strap that you needed to get the gloves off. If you didn't undo this, I don't think you'd ever get the glove back off your hand. Fortunately, a couple of minutes with scissors on each of the gloves takes care of this. It may catch a little, but you can see I can slide it through now without much trouble. I don't think that's something that we should see on a pair of gloves from someone like Alpinestars. Seems like a bit of an oversight that they didn't trim that down to make it easier. I understand they don't want the strap to come out, but it is wider on the end to prevent it from slipping out easily. And in this particular situation, you need all the stretch you could get to get the gloves on through the narrow wrist area. Now, I will say when I first got them, it was much more difficult to get on and off than it is now. So they have broken in some. The leather has stretched a bit to make them easier to put on. And overall, they did get more comfortable because when they first arrived, they were pretty stiff. After a few rides though, they have softened up rather nicely. Now, I've gone over a bit of the protection, a bit of the construction with the mesh, the leather. We've got that suede right here. We also have what I like is a palm slider. In case you were in a crash and you hit the ground, our first instinct is to put our hands out in front of us, like this, to stop. With this kind of slider, you'll slide, where if it was leather, like on this side, it wants to catch. That sudden shock of it catching could cause more of an injury to your wrist than just simply sliding along. I like to see these on here. I'd like to see a second one on this side instead of this little foam pad, but one's better than none. Let's take a look at the venting. Now, there's a lot of mesh panels, especially under here, under the Gauntlet, on the back. I will say though that the mesh panels right here don't actually seem to flow much air. And if you put a flashlight inside, you'll see hardly any light except from the very edges comes through. Riding in warm weather, which I did get one day of recently, it still got kind of warm back here on that part of my hand and under the heel of the hand too. The good thing is though that these holes in the perforated leather under the fingers and throughout the palm do vent very well. If you're riding along, you have your hands a little bit loose, your fingers are open a little bit, you feel a ton of air under your fingers. And that's great when it gets really hot outside. These gloves also have a polyester lining, which I thought was kind of interesting to find on a summer or hot weather glove. Typically, you don't want anything else to interfere with the ventilation, but I will say, even though the lining goes all the way through the fingers, I could still feel air flowing through there. A lot of times manufacturers put a lining in these gloves to make them feel smoother and more comfortable on the inside, especially if there are internal seams that they kind of want to cover up so that they're not digging into your hand. And for the most part it works. However, I'm going to show you a close-up that shows you all these internal seams that sit under this area of the thumb, under this foam pad. It's a really thick seam and there's a lot of stitching and an extra piece of material in there that I'm not sure what happened. All of a sudden we've got all the rest of the glove, looks nice and smooth, but then you get there and bam, it's like a train wreck happened inside there. And I will say, you can feel that when you first put the glove on. I can push right here, I can kind of feel that seam. Now it has softened up a little bit over time, but it still seems like something that Alpinestars should have thought of and said, we should find a more graceful way of bridging those pieces together. Because when I take these gloves off after an hour of riding, there is a very thick red line that runs right across my hand showing that seam. Fit is what I would expect from Alpinestars and other similar brands. I'm wearing a size medium and my hand fits pretty much like it was made for this glove. And that's typical for me in most medium gloves. My fingers are just about at the end of the finger boxes. If I curl them up to put them around the grip, they take up just that remaining space without feeling tight. The thumb has a little restriction at the end, but it's at that point where I'd rather it be holding my thumb in rather than trying to hyperextend in the event of a crash. So that's it for the SP Air gloves from Alpinestars. For the full detailed review and more photos, go to webbikeworld.com. Thanks for watching.